Well, I'm Chief Warrant Officer 4 Victor Pinion, U.S. Navy retired, telling some stories of my naval career. Well, this one is when I was the maintenance officer pretty early in deployment aboard the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy CV67. This one is problems that we experienced with the old Mark I nose gear launch equipment for the catapults. You would rig it for each launch or launch series and de-rig it. We had to de-rig it, especially off of catapult number 3 before we could land airplanes because it's in the landing area. Also, as you launch these jet aircraft from the catapults, you're pulling some G's, launching those things. They spray fuel down, jet fuel down the flight deck as they're being catapulted off. At least they did during this time. And that made it slick. It made the catapults very slick. Well, we had a couple of kinds of aircraft that would get hung up in the nose gear launch equipment, and that was the A6 bomber and the Tomcat fighter, F-14 Tomcat fighter plane. Well, their nose wheels would get a little bit crooked cocked and they'd get jammed in there. The A6s were the worst ones. Sometimes they'd get jammed in there so bad, so tight, and we just work trying to get them out. But now you've got aircraft coming back from the previous launch, and they're at low fuel state. And these birds that would get hung up in Cat 3's nose gear launch equipment, they're in the landing area. You can't possibly land any of those aircraft with this airplane there. You've got to get him out of there, which was a struggle. The air boss told us after we had one of those do that, and we were in the med, and we were in duress. The air boss instructed that don't stop those aircraft when you're taxiing them into the nose gear launch equipment. Get them, spun them around, line them up with it behind the catapult, lower that launch bar. Don't stop the airplane to lower that launch bar or hook up the trail bar, which is what we call the release element. We broke a T-bar, tension bar at that time. Now they use a repeatable release mechanism. But at that time we broke a tension bar with the holdback every time we launched an airplane. Well, that meant that the hookup men are having to jump along, squatting, jumping along there, slapping at the release mechanism to release the A6 aircraft's launch bar. Now, if one of them was to trip and fall and that airplane's nose wheel run over him, he's going to lose whatever it run over because those airplanes are heavy. And I didn't like that at all. And NATOP's manual, which was basically our Bible. You shall do this, and you shall not do these things. And one of them was, you shall stop that airplane aft of that nose gear launch approach ramp and lower the launch bar and hook up the trail bar or holdback unit, and then taxi the airplane on into there. Well, the NATOPs required us to do that, and the Joint Air Pack, Come Never Land aircraft carrier air department standard operating procedures also required that too, you know. I was well aware of those things. And I briefed the air boss on it. I talked with the air boss. He says, we're going to do this. We cannot have these airplanes getting hung up on Cat 3. We just can't have that. Okay, so I went down and I drafted a naval message back to the States to Come Never Land and to Naval Air Systems Command and to the Naval Air Engineering Center. And I took it up and explaining what we're doing. Said, unless otherwise directed, because we've got these problems, we are going to do this. Air boss took it. We're not sending that. And he took it and he wouldn't let it go. Well, I kept a copy of it. We had a civilian tech rep come aboard from the Naval Air Engineering Center, and he saw the hookup crew on Cat 3 doing that, and he asked me about it. Man, that's illegal as hell. I says, I'm well aware of it. The air boss requires it, and I think the commanding officer required him to do it. I said, but I've tried everything I know of to do it, including drafting the message, trying to get it released. He said, where's that message? I said, the air boss won't let it go. You got a copy of it? Well, yeah, I do, so I showed him the copy of it. He left, he read it, and he left immediately, went up and talked to air boss. And he threatened air boss, if you don't stop this immediately, I am going to tell my bosses back in the States about it as soon as I get back. Air boss called me, picked up at 5MC, had me call him. Did you tell this tech rep about this? I said, well, he saw the crew doing it, and he asked about it. And yes, I did tell him about it. Damn it. I said, boss, I'm just trying to do the best I can. So he said, well, the captain never required that. I said, well, boss, you told me that you were requiring it, and you told me, I believe, that the captain required it. So we've been doing it since you required it. He said, well, stop doing it immediately. Aye, sir. We will. So we did. The Naval Engineering Center was well aware of the problems we had there. Every ship that had that model nose gear launch equipment had those problems, and they had designed a new Mark II nose gear launch, I believe it was, that was a flush stack nose gear launch. You didn't have to rig and de-rig it between conventional bridle aircraft and nose gear launch. But what a struggle. Just what a struggle. I'm not, trying to badmouth the air boss. He's doing the best he can too. But those airplanes getting hung up in that was a real problem. We had to get them out there. So the best bet is to not let them get hung up in there in the first place. But because of our operating requirements, we had to use that catapult. So that's just some of the problems that we experienced on the aircraft carriers during the day. Well, that's the end of the story. Y'all carry on.